Good morning, everyone. Okay, so in the last program, we have seen like how we can make a use of enhanced for loop. And whenever we are using enhanced for loop, it can only be used with collections. So when we say collection could be a simple array or could be a list, collection, set, or map. Let me just take a quick review of like what we have studied in the last lecture, and then we are moving forward with the next topic. So when you define how does the syntax goes with enhanced for loop, see, enhanced for loop have only two parameters. I mean, there's only two partitions separated by colon. On the right hand side, you specifically have to give the name of the collection from where you wanted to fetch the values. Now, this is always going to be either the name of array or name of a list collection, set collection, or a map collection. So on the right hand side of this loop, on the right hand side, it must always be the name of that collection from where the values are required to be get iterated. The values are required to be get fetched out. So that is what it should always be on the right hand side. Now, when we come to the left hand side has two parameters. There are two things. The first, you'll have to write down the data type of every value of the collection what you are referring. So on the right hand side, you have written the name of a collection. Collection always have different values. So you specifically would require to mention the data type of those values which are inside this collection. Let's consider if this is a string array. If this is an array having all string values, I'm going to write string over here. If this would be customer code, if this would be a collection having all, let's say, ID values, I'm going to write ID over here. If this collection is having all of the date values, then I would be writing date over here. So it all depends. It all depends what kind of values are there inside this collection. You would have to mention that data type and then define a local variable of that, a temporary variable. What is the role of this temporary variable? See, this loop would automatically be iterated from the first value till the last value of this collection. Now, it would transfer the first value and then second and then third, and every value out of this this collection would be going to be get stored inside this particular local variable. So from inside, from inside the loop, you would have to refer with this name. You would have to refer with this name. All right. So this is what is a format of enhanced for loop, and we are going to use it multiple times. So this is going to be repeated so many times, ultimately every one of us would understand it. And I hope you all have already understood this. Now only there is a matter of practice to make it use repeatedly, that we are going to cover in throughout the course of programming. All right. So this was all about the iterative statements, loop statements, right? We have learned that there are 4 different forms of loops: while, do while, normal for loop, and enhanced for loop. So while, do while, and for loop, we can use it at any place. wherever you wanted to iterate certain amount of statements, you wanted them to be get executed more than once, then you can make a use of either while, do while, or for. Now, out of these three, for is the most commonly used uh, loop statements, iterative statement. Why? Because for is, I could say is the more easy, user friendly, and moreover, it is the kind of optimized one. Why? Because in the while and do while, it would require three separate lines for initialization, and then for the condition check and for the increment object decrement part. Whereas in the for loop, all goes in a single line. Inside the bracket itself, you can write down the variable declaration over there. You can check for the conditions, and you can also either perform the increment object decrement with the counters value. So out of these three, while, do while, and for, generally for is always used. Now, when we come to enhanced for loop particularly would always be used in the case if you are using a collection. And in real-time programming, it would always be, in 90% of the cases, 95% of the cases, in 100% of the cases, we would be going to make a use of collections. Why I am saying this? Why I am saying this? Because there are two strong reasons behind this. There are two strong evidences. The first is we would always use multiple values inside a program. So whenever we have to deal with multiple values, we always would require a collection. I have told you previously as well that a variable can only store one value. If you would define a variable, the variable is that component of program which is used to hold the value. But then what is the capacity of a variable? Variable could maximum store only one record, only one value. So if you have defined an integer variable, for example, integer num equals to, now you could store only one value of integer inside that. Similarly with every one of them. So if I wanted to store multiple values, I have to promote myself. I have to use another component of programming called as collection. Collections are of two types. You would be going to learn the second type very soon. Right now, at least we have understood, we have learned like what is an array. Array is a collection of homogeneous elements. It's a collection of all similar elements, the elements which have same data type and which share the same properties, same attributes. So whenever we would be dealing with collection, which is going to be most of the times, in most of the times in the programming situation, you would always deal with collections. Why? Because in most of the cases, it would always be multiple values, more than one values. So we would going to make a use of enhanced for loop. All right, चलो. तो ठीक है, अब इसके आगे बढ़ते हैं. And next, I'm going to start with the principles of object-oriented programming. We don't have to go much deep inside the theoretical concept. Knowing this, that Apex is fully an object-oriented programming is enough. This is enough, although. So, see, usually there are two forms of programming languages, procedure-oriented and object-oriented. Nowadays, procedure-oriented is almost vanished, is almost gone. Procedure-oriented languages, they are almost out of the stream. And unless you are working on the mainframes, there is no another use of programming languages of this kind. Mainframes are probably the only place where we use C programming. Previous to C programming, we used to we use Pascals, we use COBOL and Fortrons. There were so many different forms of programming languages, but all of them are completely outdated, and they are completely out of the box. They are not used, right? Now we are from the C++ onwards, the new terminology has been started with something called as object-oriented programming. Now, object-oriented programming is more focused, and it try to make the programming language more simple, simple to understand, simple to code. So I could say, see, there are so many other principles as well. I'm going to discuss some of basic principles. But I do rather say that as compared to a procedure-oriented, the object-oriented programming, it tends more towards the user side, more towards the user side. What we usually used to say as a user-friendly component. As what we say is that a user-friendly component. That means the object-oriented is more user-friendly as compared to your project, as compared to your procedure-oriented. It is more user-friendly kind of language. Now, see, we don't have to study this concept very deeply. Why I'm telling you once again, because we just have to have the understanding, and more important, it to code. Having a theoretical knowledge and then you don't know how to code, this is not going to work in real time. You're taking this training not to clear any exam. Of course, you have to do the certifications, but for certification there would be a certain different sort of studies. You would definitely, the knowledge what you are gaining here would be something which you have to utilize over there, but then you have to study in a little different manner for that. But this training you are taking because you wanted to work in a real-time environment. So in real-time environment, nobody would, even in the interviews, no one would ask you what are the principles of object-oriented and all. But you have to know this. Why? Because वो कहते हैं ना कि बेस क्लियर होना चाहिए इंसान का. If you know something, if you have a knowledge something, you should know it from the basics. That's why. That's why everything, whatever we learn, we have to always start it from the basics. So object-oriented language usually have few of the principles. Some of them are like encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, polymorphism. Now, if Apex programming claims to be a fully object-oriented language, that to be it's a cloud-based object-oriented language. So if somebody would ask you what language you are studying in Salesforce, so you can tell them that Salesforce, in Salesforce, first of all, the programming part is not much. It's about 30 to 40% of the development, which goes by customizing the product. Otherwise, most of the things, Salesforce is that technology which covers almost 50 to 60% or 70 to 80% sometimes if it's a lightweighted CRM. So it covers everything without writing a code. But whenever we do the code, we use a language called as Apex. So Apex is what? Apex is an object-oriented, a cloud-based object-oriented. It's fully object-oriented. It supports all of the basic principles of an object-oriented. And plus, it's a cloud-based. That means if I wanted to do the Apex coding, I does not require to install anything onto my system. And we are doing this, right? We are doing this. How we do this? We go to developer console. Where do we find developer console? That is also is a URL. This also in URL. You can see this is a URL. Right now, we are coding inside execute anonymous window. That is also is coming in a form of a cloud, right? This is also a browser. So everything, whatever we are doing, we are doing this on cloud. So it's a cloud-based and it's an object-oriented. It supports all of the principles of object-oriented programming. Like encapsulation, what does it means by the encapsulation? Encapsulation means combining encapsulation. When I say, I'm not sure what is written over here, but in a simple word, when we say encapsulation, it actually means combining data along with the methods. Combining data along with the methods. So if you have combined data, and then you have written some methods to retrieve that data. That means it looks like a capsule. So in a single entity, if I have combined data along with the method, that if somebody wanted to access this data, it have to go with the methods only. Methods is that channel to provide the access on data, right? You cannot access it separately. You cannot access data separately. And for this, we are going to learn a component called as class. Class. Class is a combination of data along with methods. Class is a combination of data along with methods. So and we create the class inside Apex programming. That means it supports the principle of encapsulation. The second is abstraction. When we say abstract something, I don't know, I mean, you guys have submitted any, I mean, I'm not sure, but in engineering, when we were in the final year and we were doing our projects, so there are two terminologies I wanted you to understand. So whoever teacher, like who one, मतलब क्या होता है कि someone has been assigned to you as क्या बोलते हैं उसको, as a project guide, yes. So he asked you to submit something called as abstract or synopsis. So what does this abstract actually means? It's a summary. It's a 1-page or 2-page summary where you would describe your requirements, your project, your idea, why you are building up that product, your ideology behind this. What is the problem statements? Just you will try to define the proposed solution for that. That is what it does means by an abstract. So when I say an abstract actually means it is the extracted portion out of a big concept, out of a big, if there is a big data behind that. But I have extracted few of them just to display, just to make the audience to understand that this is what. And you might have read certain novels or maybe a book. In the first page, there's something called as prologue, which would explain this whole story, this whole book, what you are going to read contains what. So if you, that 1-page prologue or 2-page prologue would give you the entire summary of the what is this content has been written inside this book. So that is what it means by the abstract. So when we say the abstract in terms of programming, it means we would only provide the collective information in the front end, and rest every other complicated things has been hidden. How come, your Salesforce have this principal abstraction? I'll show you. When you go to this front end part, now, for example, you have like contact object. Inside contact, if you would try to create a new, there's a field called as an email. Okay. If I would type anything and I would like to try to save it, it would give me an error. Invalid email address. How come this is coming up? This is coming up because in the back end, there is a system validation rule is getting fired. And this rule is checking that whatever you are entering inside the email, inside this field, it does not matches with the proper syntax of an email, because email must have a symbol called @ something dot something, right? Now, if I would try to save it, it's going to save it. Why? Because that actually would matches with the format. See, even though if this is not seems to be a genuine email ID, but at least it matches with the syntax. So in the backend, there is a validation rule called a system validation rule, which is getting fired. But did I see that validation? If I would try to see this, if I would go to view object, and if I would try to see for any of the validation rule, if I have created over here, if I would go to the validation rule, I'm not going to find it. Why I'm not going to find it? Because that is present inside metadata. So this was just a simple example of what is there inside metadata. What is there inside a metadata? So metadata is a data behind data. It's a data about data. So there are so many things which is kept hidden from you, but which is there. which actually exist. Problem is you cannot see it from your eyes. You cannot see it from your eyes, although those things, there are so many things. This was just a very small example. There are so many other things you would be going to learn all them. And they are present inside metadata. They are present inside metadata. And there are so many times, you actually would require to see something inside metadata. But then if I'm saying ki yaar, I cannot see metadata, तो ऐसा नहीं है, there are some of the ways to extract it. There are some of the ways to extract it. I'm not sure whether you would going to find it simple or what, Abhi. But I will show you like how you can extract metadata. So if you ever wanted to download metadata, if you ever wanted to see the metadata, you cannot make any changes. First of all, you cannot make any changes in the metadata. That's something which is defined. It's a defined database. You can access it if you know a little deep concepts of programming. Then you could access. The first way is go with the Salesforce Inspector. There's an option to download the metadata. You can select what you wanted to download. If I just wanted, for example, if I wanted to download all of the LWC components, if I wanted to download all of the report types, data of the objects, custom permissions, I'm giving you one assignment by today. Please write down this question. Write down the differences between custom set and custom metadata. Please write it down. Custom set and custom metadata. Custom set and custom metadata. Please go with this. Workflows, assignment rules, if you wanted to download. Approval process you wanted to download. So this would, when you would download this, it would generate a file called as XML, package.xml, something like this. Something like this. It would generate a file, something like this. So this is the first way to extract metadata. There's one more way. There's one more way is the VS Code. VS Code. VS Code is one IDE, Integrated Development Environment. Like you are using this developer console. What is this developer console? This is IDE. There's an official name for this. For this type of components, for this type of things, there's an official name for them. IDE, Integrated Development Environment. An environment where we used to do our development. Execute Anonymous window is a part of that. So if somebody would ask you, how many IDEs you know, when you are learning this classic, you would have to say that all of the classic programmings, Apex programming, I did this on developer console. And for the Lightning part, particularly for LWC, there are two things in Lightning for now, Aura and LWC. Aura is going to become obsolete in the upcoming days because Salesforce, Aura actually is a third-party tool. Salesforce has, in the initial days, Salesforce has adopted this technology. Now they have created their own. So we are migrating ourselves slowly, but gradually. We are migrating ourselves from Aura to LWC. And even I would also suggest, if you would learn LWC only is fine. It's fine. If you would not learn Aura, it's not going to hurt you in any cases. All right. So LWC. When you are doing the LWC cannot be done on developer console. LWC requires some foreign IDs, and this is the best among all. Visual Studios, VS Code. Here also you can see the package.xml. So this is the way to download. This is the way to download the metadata and everything. right? You can see the names of all triggers, name of all of the flows. And there are so many things which I have downloaded, right? Name of all of the components, name of all of the flows which I have. This is related to some other, this is a backup of one of my sandbox. So I have taken the backup of all of the flows which I have created, so everything. This is what it is called as metadata. All right, so discussion goes a little bit ahead. All right, let me come back. Let me take you to this. So what does it mean by the abstraction? Abstraction means seeing what is important to see and hide all other complicated things. And Salesforce did it very well, right? Every complicated thing is present inside metadata. And you would just see the final presentations in the front end part. All right. So that is what it means by the abstraction. Inheritance means inheriting something from the parents. Right. So for example, if you look similar, or maybe the few features of your looks like exactly same as your parent. Like some of you have the eyes maybe same as your mother or your father, or some other features you have. So that is what we say, he has inherited this from his parents. If nothing, if your nature is as good as your parent, they would say, yes, he is a copy of his father, he's a copy of his mother, right? So whenever we inherit something from our ancestors, from our parents, so that feature or that functionality is called as inheritance. So inheriting means something, if you already have a component over there and you take the advantage of that, you do system.debug. All right. System is already a class and debug is already a method. In my program, see, in my program, I have not defined in anywhere what is system, what is debug, but compiler knows this. Compiler know that if you are using this statement, this has been inherited from a parent class. There is a class called as system. Inside that system, there is a method called as debug. So you are inheriting this functionality from that class. If you have like date is a class. Add days is a method. Math is a class. Math is a class. These all are the methods. So if you are inheriting certain functionality which belongs to some other class, compiler allows you to do that. Why? Because Apex programming allows you to inherit certain properties from the parent class. That is what does it means by inheritance. Polymorphism. We all know a word very common in colleges, polytechnic college. This word poly means many. It's actually a Greek terminology. It's a Greek word. Morphism or morphism means multiple forms. Now, this word in Greek is used to describe jokers. This word polymorphism in Greek, it used to describe jokers, or at least not jokers too. So उस जमाने में if you go with this is very interesting. I mean, when you wanted to increase your vocabulary, the best way is to go with the roots of the words. And I have a wonderful book for that. What is the name? Word Power Made Easy. Word Power Made Easy. Go with that book. So it would give you the root of the English language words. It would help you out to understand how the words are being originated. So in the Greek, like this word polymorphism used to describe a person who can take different forms. So there were two possibilities to this. First was jokers. जो स्ट्रीट प्ले करते थे ना, स्ट्रीट पे अलग अलग रूप लेके प्ले करते थे। तो एंड द सेकंड वाज लाइक राजाओं के पास में काफी सारे उस वक्त जासूस हुआ करते थे, सीक्रेट एजेंट्स। So they send it, they deployed it to all other countries to get their secrets. तो ये लोग वहां जाके फिर अलग अलग क्या बोलते हैं उसको, वेशभूषा जिसको बोलते हैं, दैट इज मोर टिपिकल हिंदी वर्ड उसको। इन जनरल हिंदी हम क्या बोलते हैं यार उसको, जो भी बोलते होंगे, अलग अलग रूप ले लेते थे। एंड दे बिकम अ पार्ट ऑफ दोस कम्युनिटी। तो they were being they were being called as polymorphs, polymorphs कहते थे उनको। Now, this word in technology is used to describe a method which could take multiple forms. Now, what is a method would be a part of discussion. थोड़ा सा मैंने कल या परसों की बात है, शायद आप लोगों से कहा था कि देखो अगर कोई वर्ड आपको मिले और उसके आगे आपको एक ओपनिंग और क्लोजिंग स्क्वायर राउंड ब्रैकेट दिख जाए तो समझ जाना कि ये एक मेथड है, लाइक योर सिस्टम डॉट, है ना, आपने ये सब जो लिखा अभी, यू हैव रिटन लाइक सिस्टम डॉट एंड ऑल दीज आर द मेथड्स, लाइक ऑल दीज आर द मेथड्स। ठीक है, जहां कहीं भी आपको एक ओपनिंग और क्लोजिंग स्क्वायर ब्रैकेट दिख, राउंड ब्रैकेट दिख रहा है, सो दैट इज अ मेथड। मेथड एग्जैक्टली क्या है, कितने टाइप्स की होती है, इस पे हमारा डिस्कशन होने वाला है। सो इन एपेक्स प्रोग्रामिंग यू कैन हैव same method of multiple names. Now, same, you can have different methods of same name. Sorry, I was doing it wrong. So in Apex programming, it allows you to have different methods, but of the same name. Like if you already have a method called as addition, you can also have another method in the same program called as addition. You can have multiple of them, but how then in that case, how compiler would going to differentiate? That depends on their signatures. What is a signature? You're going to learn something what we give inside this kachori. That is called as signature. So here to have x comma y, x, y, z. These are parameters actually. We're going to talk on this. We're going to have a discussion in a separate session for all this. But that is what does it means by a polymorphism. So compiler would allow you to have multiple forms of that same method. So in short, and there are a few more principles. This is not just the few one. These are actually few one. This is not the complete list. But Apex programming supports all of the principles of object-oriented language. And so in short, the conclusion, let's not extend this in more. Apex is a fully cloud-based object-oriented programming. Apex is fully cloud-based object-oriented programming. All right, let me now start with the class. Because this is complete theoretical portion, I wanted this to be get finished as early as possible. But problem is I cannot skip. I cannot say to you कि ये आप लोग पढ़ लीजिए, मैं कल से प्रोग्राम लेता हूँ. I am going to tell you that कि हाँ आपको पढ़ना तो है, but at least मुझे एक बात तो भी बताना पड़ेगा. और काफी सारा theoretical portion है. Class is just like a container. Class is like a container. Class is like a container. For example, you have different data. Understand? Let me try to draw a small diagram. There are few of the integer values you are having. You have some of the string values. You have some of date values, right? You have some of other data type values. This all seems to be very scattered form of data, isn't it? This all seems to be different data, although it is, but then combined it all represents one record. Let me try to give you an example. I wanted to store the details of one student. I wanted to store the details of one student, multiple students, but at least I would have one, and I have to start with one of them. I wanted to store records of 100 students, but somehow I have to start from the first of them, right? So I wanted to store the details of one student. What I can store? I mean, what are the things you would see? I can store like his name. I can store his age, his class, or maybe in which year he's studying. I can ask him for his date of birth. I can ask him maybe what is his fees, or might be a few other details, maybe like his phone number, maybe like his Aadhaar card in India. That is what is a unique identity every one of us have. In America, it's SSD, the Social Security number, SSN, sorry. All right. So all this, all this would have a data type as string. Age would have a data type as number. Class or year would have, I think it would have date. Date of birth would also have date. Fees would be decimal. Phone would be string. Aadhaar card, because that's all number of 12 digit, although it can be accommodated in integer, I could also take long for this. Although integer can accommodate this. So now see, this combinedly would represent one record of student. There are multiple different forms of data, but are everything is scattered? No, they are the part of one unit. These all are the part of one unit. So whenever you see this kind of possibility where there are multiple forms of data, whenever you see with this, but they represent a single entity, that entity is called as class. So class is what? Class is a container. Class is a container, a template, which is used to hold the multiple different values. Class is that container. It could have same values as well. ऐसा नहीं कि हमेशा multiple ही रहे. I would rather say it would hold multiple values. Now, these multiple values could be of the same data type, could be of a different data type, similar or dissimilar, whatever. So that is what is a class is. That is what is a class is. And in terms of real time, the class always represents a business entity, like student, employees, or whatever you are developing, for which you are doing a coding. You always have to summarize your code. You always have to form your code inside a class. So class would be a collection of business logic. If I would talk more in a terms of technical with this or this, I would rather say that class is a collection of all business logics. If I am creating a class, I am creating because I have a business requirement. I have a coding requirement. And for that coding, I am creating my class. I'm creating this class because class is a collection of business logic. All right. That is what it is, a class is. Now, there are so many things which have been written. Class have variables, properties, constructors. Gradually, you would be going to learn everything of them. What does it mean by variables, constructors, procedures, function? In C programming, in C++ programming, we have this constructors and destructors as well. Java also have this. Apex only have constructors. We don't have destructors. What is the use of this? When I would come to that part, constructor, I would also explain you what is a destructor. All right. So how does the format, how does the syntax of class looks like to be? Let's talk on that. The first thing is always access specifier. Whenever we are defining a class, whenever we are creating a class, before the name itself, the keyword for defining the class is class, CLASS. That is what is a keyword. So before even writing the keyword class, we would have, and this is compulsory, all right? You cannot skip this. Access specifier, and then class name. Now, access specifier, there are of 4 types: public, private, global, and protected. There are 4 different types of access specifiers: private, public, protected, and global. There are 4 different types of access specifiers. I'm coming into that, don't worry. See, I'm coming into that, all right? But whenever we are defining a class, we can use only 3 of them. Class could be a public, private, and global. What is missing? What is missing? What is missing? Yes, you can unmute yourself, no problem. I have given you the command. What is, I mean, usually मैं सिर्फ ये command शुरुआत में हटा देता हूँ because whenever you guys join, you don't take care of your mics. किसी के घर की कुकर की सीटियां बजती हैं, तो किसी घर में से आवाज आती है, तो that doesn't seem good, नहीं अच्छा नहीं लगता है. तो इसलिए मैं शुरुआत में ये कमांड हटा देता हूँ आप लोग को, ताकि आपके घर के मामला तो आपके घर तक सीमित रहे और हमको ना पता चले, बाकियों को ना पता चले। हाँ, so there are four different types of access specifiers: public, private, protected, and global. Protected is missing. Protected is missing. Class cannot be protected in Apex programming. Always remember this. Class cannot be protected. Please write it down somewhere. This is very important thing to know. In this moment itself, if you are getting something important out of today's session, this is that statement. A class cannot be protected in Apex programming. You cannot protect a class access specifier, cannot be protected in any case. Then where do we use this protected keyword? I'm going to show you that as well. We're going to talk on this. But right now you have to understand, you please write it down somewhere. I told you कि कागज में लिखो और अपने सामने चिपका के रखो, ताकि वो तुम्हारी नजरों के आगे घूमते रहे। ऐसी बहुत सारी बातें हैं जो शायद नोट्स में है या नहीं है, लेकिन डिस्कशन के दौरान निकलती हैं। और कितनी बातें हम लोग याद रख पाएंगे इनमें से, है ना। तो जरूरी सबसे ये है कि आप अपने नोट्स लिखा करें क्लास में, और ऐसे कोई जगह जरूर बनाएं जहां पे ये सारी चीजें इंपॉर्टेंट आपके सामने लिखी हुई हों। सो क्लास कैन नॉट बी प्रोटेक्टेड, क्लास कैन ओनली बी पब्लिक, प्राइवेट, global. Class cannot be protected. There are four different forms of access specifiers. Private. When you make a class, all right, let me start with public, first of all. When you make a class or a method, when you make a class or a method as public, when you make a class or a method as public, this is my boundary, this is my organization. This is my organization. What is an organization? All right, let me start from that point. What is an organization? This is my organization, by the way. This is my organization. How would I find things related to my organization? Go to company profile, go with company information. Go with company information. You are going to find everything related to your organization over here. Like, what is your organization ID? Organization ID always starts with 00D and it's always of 18 character. But here you would see only 15 of them. 3 are hidden. But you can fire a query to get them as well. What is your server name? And then how much data you have consumed, and now everything, how many licenses you are having, how many permission set licenses you are having. प्लीज कभी तो भी मुझे याद दिलाओ परमिशन सेट लाइसेंस के बारे में बताने का। आज तो नहीं बता पाऊंगा, मुझे प्लीज याद दिलाओ। मैं बहुत 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 जबरदस्त चीज बताऊंगा इसके बारे में। मैं भूल गया था तुम लोग बताना। हाउ मेनी फीचर लाइसेंसेस यू आर हैविंग, एंड देयर आर अदर सो मेनी थिंग्स एज वेल। Everything related to the organization has been displayed over on this page. So when you define a class as public, when you define a class as public, this is my class. I created a class which public access specifier. This class can be referred at any place within this organization. Within this organization, it can be referred at any place. Within this organization, it can be referred at any place. इस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के अंदर कहीं भी उसको यूज कर सकते हैं। अब मान के चलो, एक थोड़ा सा यहाँ पे एक कंसेप्ट है, थोड़ा सा डिटेल्ड है, ध्यान से सुनो। अभी नहीं लेता, छोड़ो, मुझे अच्छे से एक्सप्लेन करना है इसको। ये पूरा मैं कल ही पढ़ाता आपको, कल पढ़ाता हूँ और कल इसको अच्छे से एक्सप्लेन करता हूँ, बिकॉज यहाँ पे मुझे एक विद शेयरिंग और विदाउट शेयरिंग का एक कंसेप्ट समझाना है आपको। तो थोड़ा सा हम इसको डिटेल में करेंगे। आज करने जाऊंगा तो शायद जल्दबाजी रहेगी थोड़ी सी, इसलिए आज रहने दो। ऑल राइट, लेट्स स्टॉप up to this, and by tomorrow we're going to start with access specifiers. चलिए, you guys have any questions? आप लोगों को कुछ जानना चाहते हैं, कुछ पूछना है किसी को? Anything? Anybody? Oh yeah, yes, Akash.
Sir, could we save the Apex program of announcements window?
Sorry, can you please repeat that?
Sir, could we save program of announcements window?
No, no, actually not. Whatever you would write, if you wanted to save this only one way, just copy and paste it somewhere. Just copy and paste it somewhere. Yeah, this is the only way to do this. Otherwise, but अभी थोड़ा सा आने वाले समय में we would going to create the classes and all. So classes would be something that you could say. For example, if I would create a class with a name called sample. Now this is my class. Everything inside this class. You know, you can save it. And now if you even close it, you can find it. All right. We're going to see that. You just have to how to open that and everything. Right. So अभी हम आगे चल के ये चीज करने वाले हैं. Right now we are doing programming over here, which is a temporary window actually. Here you cannot save the program. Yes. Anything else? All right then. Thank you so much for joining. Have a nice day.